to round 4 of the Shannon's National, sponsored by High Tech Oils. Today's show will feature the V8 touring cars, saloon cars and the Porsche GT3 Cup. We're at Winton Raceway in some chilly conditions this weekend, so buckle up and brace yourself for some serious racing.
It's round 3 of the Porsche Staff Solutions International GT3 Cup Challenge Australia. Round 3 is here at Winton Motor Raceway. Former Porsche Carrera Cup racer James Moffat's alongside me for this. Moff, this is a great place for Porsches.
It is a great place for the Porsches. First time the championship has visited this circuit. So Winton, 3.2 kilometres, 12 corners. On board now with John Modista, and coming out of turn 2, up the hill into the old turn 1 here at Winton. So down to third gear. Important to put the power down nice and smoothly out of turn 3. Turn 4, difficult corner on the track, slightly cambered on entry. And on approach now to turn 5, the sweeper. Fastest corner on the track here at Winton Motor Raceway. And these Porsches are well suited to this type of corner, that's for sure. So into one of the most technical parts of the circuit, turn 7. And a very tight sequence of corners, 7, 8 and 9. And important to be very patient with the car. If you try and overdrive through this section of the track, it's very easy to lose lap time. So into turn 9, another tight right-hander onto the old back straight. So important to put the power down well, because that sets up a passing opportunity into turn 10. A tight second gear corner that leads on to another straight, which sets up a great passing opportunity into the second last corner, but very bumpy under brakes, especially for these stiffly sprung GT3 Cup Challenge cars. Into the final corner now, important to get a good run onto the front straight, up through the gears, and John Modista finishes the lap for us.
Jeff Bobick has been a regular feature of the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge since its inception, and he's always a regular front-runner. But is 2012 the year where he shines?
Well, it's my 5th year. I've come run up a couple of times, and third, I think, twice. So I'd like to get the top step of the podium done this year, and it'd be a nice reward, I think, after 5 years of coming close. Yeah. Well, it was probably my best year of driving. I drove really well. I mean, I think I've won 5 races. I finished on the podium 13 times, but I had a couple of DNFs and broke some drive shafts and got hit once, and yeah, sort of causes, you can't do that. You've got to finish all races, and that cost me dearly at the end.
The Porsche GT3 Cup kicks off their round 3 this weekend, following a round 2 victory win by Kane Rose. I'm joined by Andrew Menzies. Andrew, this is your first year in the series. Can you take me through your performance so far?
It's been a spectacular performance so far. That's obviously a joke. This is my first year in the car, first year racing a Porsche, first year on these circuits with very little racing experience. So I've had very realistic expectations and been learning a lot every time I'm going out, and having a lot of fun as well.
Kane Rose is leading the championship at the moment. Do you have any strategies to beat him?
I have asked him for a few tips on how he gets around here, but I think it seems to come pretty naturally to Kane. I think my strategy is going to be to jump into Brent Hodges' car and go around with him, because he's hot on his tail in second place both races this season, this race.
Thanks, Andrew. Buckle up and get ready for some GT3 action.
After a win at round 2 at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, Kane Rose now leads the Porsche Staff Solutions International GT3 Cup Challenge standings. But John Goodacre, Mr. Consistency, is second, Jeff Bobick third, but can never count out the drivers just in behind. And as we went into race 2 at a very wet, very sodden Winton Motor Raceway, it was Kane Rose, James Moffat, who got the best start and led them quite comfortably down into turn 1.
He did, so a great start from Rose, closely followed by Hodges and Trend. But these tricky conditions, always tough to keep it on the road, and as I say that, off goes John Trend.
Yeah, he had an off early in the race. It dropped him a long way back down the standings. This was a great battle. John Goodacre going nicely in the standings, and one of the standout performers of this year, youngster Michael Armand from Adelaide. A couple of South Australians having a great dice side by side. Never easy to do through those sequence of switchback hairpins at Winton Motor Raceway.
No, but the battle started to heat up between Woodbury and Hodges.
It was a great move down the inside. Woodbury fired it down and managed to pull it up. Unfortunately, day ended early for John Trend. A second off ended his race 2 nice and early.
And that brought out the safety car. So Kane Rose had a healthy margin before that, which was negated.
Second time in a couple of races that happened to Kane. He rebounded on Saturday in the Jim Richards Endurance Trophy race from a safety car and dropped to as low as 5th before coming through to win. But on the restart, he led the field to turn 1. Behind them, there was a dice for second. Woodbury and Odgers were having a great fight, and both were on course for career best race results in race 2. It would be almost impossible to catch Kane Rose driving at a very high level. He took the checkered flag and took 2 from 2 at this wet and wild Winton weekend, with Odgers coming home second and Woodbury an elated third at the end. Modista was 4th. Fraser Ross recovered from last to 5th. Michael Armand was 6th. Goodacre and Marjoram completed the top 8.
Yeah, it was quite good. It sort of dried up a lot towards the end of that race. We were sort of set up more for a full wet setup, so the safety car hurt a little bit. But at the end of the race, we were able to get the job done, so it was great for the Melbourne Sheepers Cars Porsche.
The Porsches are on the racetrack thanks to Staff Solutions International, the new title partner for the GT3 Cup Challenge Series. Kane Rose goes from pole, but some standout performers behind him going into this one, including Brent Odgers and Phil Woodbury, and some hard charges going from a little bit further down the pack, including one Jeffrey Bobick. We need to keep an eye on. We're underway. Slow start from Fraser Ross. Great start from John Goodacre, the Gap Solutions driver. He found the gap. Down to turn 1. This big Porsche field funnels down to the chicane. And everyone through so far except Kane Rose. He's been turned round on the exit of the corner. The driver to win the first 2 races is gone.
Oh, and very lucky not to get hit by the following cars, but terrible start for Rose off the front row of the grid, and he's all the way back in last.
There's Peter Boylan. Right at the back of the field is Kane Rose as the field funnels into turn 5. If there's ever a Porsche corner at Winton, it's this one. A great attacking corner, plenty of aero on these cars that stick them to the ground. But Modista now finds himself up to second.
No, he doesn't. He's in the lead now. So problems into turn 7. Odgers from the lead off the track, and so too championship contender John Goodacre.
Yeah, so 2 leading cars off at turn 7. And the race changes again. This is a race no one wants to lead, and we're only halfway through lap 1. Round the back, the last hairpin that leads out onto the back straight. There's John Trend. He's on the comeback trail. And a couple of other cars have made up some ground. Jeff Bobick's already inside the top 10 after starting down in 12th. And there is Kane Rose.
So on board now with Andrew Menzies behind our pole sitter Kane Rose, fighting his way back through the field.
What a dramatic opening lap. That was wild stuff. Interesting to get another look of what happened down there at turn 1. Here's Michael Armand. Stunned the Porsche establishment by qualifying on the front row at Mallala. This young South Australian second generation driver, someone else off on the back of turn 12. I think that might have been Terry Lawler, another newcomer to the Porsche series this year. And here's Fraser Ross down the inside, backs it in and takes a position, but Armand will fight back. Wild stuff.
Armand with the crossback, switchback manoeuvre on Ross. Ross fired it up the inside into turn 3, locked the inside front tyre, couldn't pull it up, and some damage to the back of Armand's number 62 Porsche.
Yeah, the race control officials will be looking at that. If it becomes any more departed from the back of that 997 Cup car, you'd think they might show the bad sportsmanship flag and send him into pit lane.
Looking back now at Jeff Bobick, who's made a brilliant start from the back of the grid, and he is already up to 5th position, so Bobick charging through the field.
Remember, 12th in race 2, came off on his own accord down at turn 1. So he's flying through the field. Modista leads, so Bobick's 4th. What a couple of opening laps he's had. Charging his way through. He's always been fast, but he's never been able to put together that one consistent weekend. I know it frustrates him to the core, but he's got so much raw speed, Jeff Bobick.
Well, he does. He has always been fast, like you said, Richie, but putting those weekends together is critical for him if he's going to contend for this championship.
There's John Trend. He's just in front of Kane Rose, so 2 guys that should be right at the pointy end of the field, a long way back. One of them thanks to incidents in race 2, the other one further back, and Fraser Ross backs it in to turn 1 and spins the Porsche Centre Brighton 997 off to the outfield, potentially moving himself to 2nd place, but now he's going to struggle to be in the top 10.
And he'll be lucky to get back onto the track because with all this rain we've had this weekend, very wet off track, but he's managed to get that Porsche Centre Brighton car going again. He'll be bitterly disappointed with that. Big move up the inside, on board with him now and just carrying too much speed. Runs it in there deep and off he goes. Lucky that he didn't get collected by both Bobbage and Woodbury.
Yeah, and one of the Morris boys was John Morris in 34 was lucky to get through as well, and he actually got a position on Jeff Bobick, so he was able to get through, but that might be soon redressed because Bobick looking to go the long way around the 34 car. The GT3 factory entry gets past. Bobick still on the comeback trail as the contenders in front of him the seas are parting for the Victorian.
So great move by Bobick. That's something you can do here at Winton Motor Raceway. If you can hold around the outside of the tight left-hander, turn 8, you have the line for turn 9, which Bobick did, and Morris had no choice but to give that position up.
So here's Armand and Bobick followed down. This Porsche series has been a great part of the Shannon's National since 2008 when the series was formed. Shannon's National's only a couple of years older. 60th Shannon's Nationals round this weekend at Winton Motor Raceway, and
Bobick up the inside. No, he can't quite get there. Had a big look up the inside of Armand. I'm surprised, Richie, that the officials haven't brought him in because that rear bumper bar is definitely hanging loose, and usually the officials are straight onto that.
And one well-placed nudge from Jeff Bobick may well see that depart in its entirety, and that might pose problems for other competitors, so they need to keep an eye on it. It does look all right, as Bobick looks all right. He's looking fantastic in this race. He's P2 now behind John Modista.
Up the inside of turn 7, so great move by the Creative Colour Porsche. And we've said before, he started from the back of the field and he's now in second position, so he'll have John Modista in his sights, that's for sure.
Here's a replay, and you know when you see the front of these Porsches starting to bounce around and scrabbling for grip that they're right on the very end of their braking performance, and these cars famous for how well they stop.
They are. And Xavier West now putting plenty of pressure on Rob Knight in the Malibu boats. Number 88 Porsche.
You got one of those parked at your house on the Gold Coast?
No, not me, Richie, not me.
Not yet. So this is a good battle a little bit further down in this very deep field. Upwards of 8 new competitors in this series this season, replacing some names that have dropped off the radar a little bit, but there's some great new names in the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge, not just the series sponsor, but some great new competitors too. Xavier West, one of those. Here's the race leader, and he's under all sorts of pressure now from Jeff Bobick. This has been a great drive through the field. He's helped by a fresh set of tyres. Didn't use much of his rubber in the Jim Richards Endurance Trophy race that was held yesterday afternoon, Saturday afternoon at Winton, a 30-lapper, but he is flying.
And of course aided by the fact that the second race was wet, so Bobick now all over the back of our race leader Modista. I think it's only a matter of time before he finds his way in the lead of this race.
Well, John's a smart racer, and team owner Andy McElray a smart team owner, and I'm sure they'll be on the radio. Look, if he's faster, let him go, because you've got a championship to worry about. Keep scoring points, and as Bobick goes through to the race lead, Modista slips to second. Might just try and keep Bobick in touch, and it's a great sight seeing the Porsche wagging the tail out of the exit of turn 12.
It certainly is. So Modista slips back to second, but for where he is in the championship, second is still a great haul of points.
This has been a good drive from Modista. He's sort of crept up on them this weekend, which is very much a trademark of his. He was 6th in race 1. He then worked his way to 4th in race 2, and now he's up to 2nd in this 3rd and final race of the weekend that will decide the round. Now, Kane Rose is on the comeback trail, still trying to steal that round win and keep that in his grasp.
I tell you what, just looking out the front of that car of Modista, Jeff Bobick, he's certainly not backing off now. He's in the lead. Plenty of attitude on that Porsche, and he is definitely still charging on, that's for sure.
He did some driver coaching with Daniel Gaunt, Porsche City Index Carrera Cup frontrunner, before this round, and said he's really changed his driving style thanks to that tuition, that sort of expert advice that he's had. You could relate to that. You've done that with Porsche competitors as well after your successful Carrera Cup career.
Yeah, and John, Jeff's always been quick in these cars. It's just probably his consistency that has let him down in the past, and he's definitely quick enough to challenge for the championship. He's just got to put together weekends like we mentioned before, and I'm sure he'll be right up in championship contention.
We saw at Mallala round 1, these two drivers, Modista and Bobick, had a great fight for the lead at the end of the Enduro, but Modista's ace up his sleeve was that he looked after his tyres better, and Jeff said that was one thing he wanted to work on with Daniel Gaunt, was trying to get the car out of a corner straighter, get to the throttle earlier and look after your tyres better.
As we now start the final lap, problems for Lawler, so he's off the road.
Exclusive Bodyworks car off the racetrack. He's had a bit of a checkered weekend, but Terry, who races a Porsche in Touring Car Masters competition, I should say, as Odgers gets into the side of West. And West is faced with pointing the wrong direction as they come back round to the start-finish straight. That's a shame for the Malibu boat entry. Here's Modista. Still trying to put the pressure on our race leader, but Bobic looks like he's got this one in the bag.
And have a look at that big bump through the sweeper that unsettles these very stiffly sprung cars. But Modista now, unless something happens to Bobic, I think he's going to be able to hold on for second. Still be a good haul of points for him this weekend. Like we said, very consistent. But the man of the match for sure in this race has been Bobic, all the way from the back of the field. Armand has been able to stay in third, hasn't had to come in to fix that rear bodywork damage, so he's been fortunate to be able to stay out on the track. John Morris solid in fourth.
And just in behind that group off is Kane Rose. So he's come through the field in the Melbourne's cheapest cars Porsche, despite that lap one, turn one spin. So he'll get himself there, and if he finishes where he is, he will win the round. The winner of the race will be Jeff Bobic. This has been a superb comeback. This car has been hooked up and he's driven it well. Flashing the lights to his crew on the wall, Jeff Bobic takes out race 3 at Winton. Modista home in a very good second, Armand third, Morris fourth, and Jeff Bobic, Kane Rose correction, up to 5th place. Adam Marjoram across the line next in the Auto 1 car. That's a good finish by one of the new drivers in this series. There are the results. John Trent recovered to 7th, so he came through the field nicely, and John Goodacre got some more good points in 8th place ahead of Stephen Grove, who moves up to Carrera Cup in a couple of weeks' time in Townsville. Rob Knight completed the top 10.
Oh, I feel fantastic. Yeah, I didn't expect it. I just tried to keep the car on the road. I didn't go off once all weekend, which was good. We've only got Eastern Creek 3 weeks away, so I can take the car there with no damage.
It was a tough act at Phillip Island, and the wet weather really hampered me down there. And this weekend, I think I got used to it a bit more. But yeah, it was a great finish to the weekend, and I'm really happy.
We've had a quick car all weekend, and we were able to make the most of it in the first 2 races. The final didn't go exactly to plan, but yeah, good racing through the class, and yeah, we got caught up in first corner incident and turned around, but yeah, we fought our way back and got some good points.
It was a great comeback, and he got the big trophy for the weekend as a result, as the Champagne Flyers on the podium at the end of round 3 of the Porsche Series. He builds his series lead just a little bit more over John Modista. Michael Armand well and truly in contention, as is Brent Odgers, and Adam Marjoram, the quiet achiever, he sits 5th after 3 rounds.